Well, I hope that you are having as wonderful a week as I am, and it's about to get just a little bit better because we finally have our first look at Model Y Juniper, and it's not just the exterior, there's actually some interior pics as well, which give us some insight on some of the design cues on the inside. Of course, we're expecting a Model 3-esque interior on this, but that's not all that's going on the inside. There's actually some pretty cool pics here to show things like the steering wheel. It's actually going to be a little bit different. So cool things to take a look at here. We also have an indication of what's possibly the timeline on Model Y Juniper. So make sure you stick around to the end so we can cover all of that in today's video. All right, so as you can see, we have our first look at Model Y Juniper. These pictures are allegedly from China, and all of these pictures, there's 3 exterior pictures of it on some sort of a testing grounds in the snow, which is of course encouraging. This is our first look at the front end, and we can see, as we all had hoped, we do indeed have this light bar, the Cybertruck styled light bar, or really the Cybercab light bar that we saw during the 1010 event. This is going to look really good, and the reason why we have a gap here is most likely because of the frame rate. So this is all going to be illuminated, and we can see these are most likely the headlights there underneath. So this light bar is not including the headlights inside of it, just like the Cybertruck. There's your headlights, and just like the refreshed Model 3, there are no fog lights. So no surprises there. Obviously disappointing. Having fog lights is nice, but we do have this arrow cover here. It's unclear if this is the standard configuration or the performance. I think it is the standard. And with that, this is what the front end would look like. Taking a look at some of these other pictures here. Here's the rear end, and it's got a very aggressive, I guess, rear fascia here. And this is where some people said it looks like a performance. But since there is no spoiler on this back, that would be a clear indication that this is not a performance model. So this, I think the snow covering up some of the details makes this look a little bit more exciting than what it is. This is probably just the normal rear bumper, but here we are with that light bar. And from other pictures we've seen, it's been very hard to tell exactly what this is going to look like because it's been completely covered with just a little sliver for the brake lights as they're testing on the road. So we have a standard larger light here on the side of the Model Y that you can't see under snow, but just like the Model 3, and this single bar that goes all the way across. So this light bar is actually inlaid inside of this panel, so it actually gives a back glow, kind of like what you see in the Lucid, and I think that's going to look really cool. And then a bit of a side shot here. It looks like we do have an update on the wheels, very much like the updated wheels from the Model 3. These are the Aero wheels, and I think that this is just fine. I think this will look fine as it is. Everything else from basically this spot right here, this corner, all the way to that front fender is exactly the same as what it is today. So taking another look here down at this side here, even the fender, really the fender, the only change on the fender itself is accommodating the new light bar instead of the headlights. So really, even the fender is almost the same. So huge chunk of this, exactly what it is today, at least on appearance. And that's not surprising. But what is surprising is some of the other details. So let's head over here to Car News China, where we have more details about this, including some interior shots of the Model Y Juniper. I don't know where these photos are taken from, but we can see from the lettering in the background, this is also from China, which is no surprise. But here's what I'm most excited about. Much like in the Cybertruck, you can see we have a squircle. So the square-styled steering wheel, it is slightly different than what is on the Cybertruck. It appears anyways, but this is going to be really cool. I know some people might have weird feelings about this, but I promise you, ergonomically, a square-styled steering wheel is much more comfortable. This is actually really awesome. Still no front display in front of the steering wheel as expected. We can see very clearly this light bar that wraps around for ambient lighting, and the dash here is exactly like the refreshed Model 3 that we have, and the screen is very much the same from the pictures that we're looking at. The pictures unfortunately are not clear enough, however, to see if the steering wheel buttons are the same, but from the blurry vision that we have right here, they look basically the same as what we have in the Model 3 on the normal circle wheel. So that's kind of the look of the inside. Model 3-esque interior as we expected, but with the change of the steering wheel into a squircle. Again, these are not going to be the haptic style buttons that we see in the Refresh S and X. These are more physical like we see in the Cybertruck and the Model 3 Refresh. We also have some other indications from earlier reporting that the Model Y Juniper was expected to have a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is a bigger battery pack than what we have today, but most sources are suggesting we should expect about a 10% increase in range. So looking at how this math works out, we're probably looking at about a 350-mile range Model Y, and that would be about 13 miles less than the Refresh Model 3, and I think that that's possibly in line with what we could expect, maybe a little bit on the high end, but I think regardless, we are going to have a larger battery pack in the Model Y. I think it makes sense that the battery density is just better by now, and we will have a little bit more range. And that is also going to be including some of these aero enhancements that we now have with the new wheels, with new rolling resistance on the new tires, and of course, some of the aero changes on the body itself. And here's a closer look at that light bar inlay that we've seen previously. Hopefully it looks something like this. This is kind of similar. It's hard to tell because of the snow on the previous one, but this backlit glow is really cool. And I think that this will be something that most people will appreciate seeing. There were earlier reports about a 6-seat variant possibly coming for the Model Y. I don't see this happening, but if it did happen, it would be pretty amazing. It'd be still a pretty small car for a 6-seat, but not having that middle seat in place makes the third row a lot more accessible, makes it easier to get in and out of, and also gives you more leg room because you can split your legs down the middle. And now finally taking a look at the timeline that's not confirmed, but is quite possible. Of course, this will start in China, just like the Model 3. China, Europe, select countries will be getting this first before the North American market, and I think that's still going to be the case for the Model Y Juniper. Reason being because all the work has been done in China, and I know we've seen some test mules here in the United States, but just like the Model 3, it's likely those were built either in California off of non-production tools or shipped over, but most likely they were working on tooling here in North America. So late January is what's expected for the first release of this outside of North America. First delivery starting in China February 1st. And then at the beginning of April, we should see these in Europe. And then finally, North America, we should expect a May time frame. If this does end up being the timeline that we see, I think that this is pretty well in line with what we saw with the Refresh Model 3. So no major surprises here if this ends up being the case. These are, of course, not confirmed, but based on information that's available at the time, this is what seems most likely. I'm super excited for the Refresh Model Y, Project Juniper. This is going to be taking the Model Y, the best-selling car in the entire world, and taking it up a notch. This is such a popular car for so many reasons because it is just the right size, especially for the North American market and apparently for the rest of the world as well. Pricing is finally right. Range is really good. Comfort is even better than it was when it launched. And now we're going to get added features, hopefully things like a cooled seat, a rear screen, some of those convenience features that are missing in the Model Y that we see in the Model 3 today. This is going to take the Model Y up a notch, and I think pricing is going to be reasonable compared to what it is today. I don't think we're going to see a major shift in pricing. As a matter of fact, most of the enhancements that they did on this car, like the Model 3, was to take a lot of cost out, but also to enhance some of the features in its place. And like the Model 3, I think the trade-off is a no-brainer. Some of the things that you lose with the cost cutting are well offset by things like a smoother suspension, a rear screen, cooled seats for sure. I think all those things coming together are going to be really awesome. And if we do see something similar to Model 3 Refresh, I think the timeline is right. Early summer, or when we see Model Y Refresh here in North America. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is that timeline reasonably right, or do you think it's going to be something completely different? I've heard some people who think Model Y Juniper is going to launch in North America first. So we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know your comments. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. And I can't wait to catch you on the next one.